And in the top left spawning as the blue Protoss player playing for Team Alpha X, it is Astrea.
Nice close zoom in there on good old Max Angel's face.
Yeah, beautiful man, beautiful man. We do have a, well, so far so good. No proxy barracks yet on the map. I do like that. Like I said, uThermal I think is good in the early game. He's quick with the multitasking, and that is definitely where he can get an edge against Astrea. It wouldn't surprise me if he just opens pretty standard and tries to send 1 or 2 drops around. That's also a move that uThermal likes to, but we'll just have to wait and see. On Curious Minds though, that actually does make me curious. What did Astrea veto if we're playing Curious Minds here? We've seen him veto Pride of Altaris before already today. And Curious Minds to me feels like the worst PvT map. Perhaps Berlingrad? It's also pretty bad. It's small. The third base can be a bit tricky. The fifth base can feel close to impossible. But I mean, look at the third base here. Yeah. How are you gonna take that? There's like an infinite concave.
Turns out that you were the curious mind all along, Harstum. No, I'm definitely with you. It is going to be interesting to see how things played out. I mean, reminder that this is a best of 5, a qualifying match. So both these players only have one of those vetoes coming into this, and the rest of the maps are basically going to be played. We start going the distance here. Now, you were talking a lot about the Stargate opening and stuff, and we are going to be keeping an eye on that as that Cybernetics core finishes up. First Adept is going to be starting on up, and Astrea did go for that Gateway Scout, so he got a little bit of the extra early game information. We're going to see how he really wants to react after he sees first units made out from uThermal.
Yeah, actually a cool thing that uThermal did here is, if you can take a look at the vision of what Astrea saw near the barracks, he did not actually spot the reactor. uThermal waited a couple of extra seconds building that reactor. That way you can perhaps fake it being a factory before the reactor rather than the straight reactor. And that would change some of the timings that Astrea would have to think about. Factory could be 15 to 20 seconds faster. And that would kind of mean that any kind of medevac drop would also be 20 seconds faster. So it is really important that you hide this type of information. Even though it's pretty standard, it's still important to point out that uThermal is doing all of these things correctly right now. Bunker as well over here is perhaps a little bit extra safe, especially if you see that Astrea so far has just been opening up with an Adept into a stock and being pretty passive with these first 2 units after Spirits played the Marine Reaper against him earlier today.
Oh, Adept is going to try and poke on 4. Is actually going to let that Shade finish, and there's 3 Marines over here. They're going to start being able to pick away at its hit points. That Shade does not look like it's going to be able to finish in time. Gets an SCV at least, but a nice pick off there for uThermal.
Yeah, very good indeed. Here comes once again that fast sentry that we've seen earlier today out of Astrea. Most likely will be followed by a robotics facility after as well. First the next, I think, then the robotics facility. And he really does like to go into Colossi, but with this type of late robo opener, I also wouldn't just mind a quick charge, getting a faster force, and maybe even skipping a third gas here initially.
All right. I'm interested to see if he's actually going to end up doing any of that, as we'll have a little bit of time before that happens. But first, we are going to have that first medevac going to be popping on out over here for uThermal. It's going to be able to join in with a couple of these Widow Mines that have already been positioned around, ready to intercept anything that could be coming his way, including maybe a Hallucinate Phoenix or anything. But for the moment, it doesn't look like there's going to be a lot of scouting with Hallucinate Phoenix since that sentry just now getting warped in. Yeah.
See uThermal also taking a third gas here, kind of indicating that he wants to follow this up with a tank and a Raven most likely. He's been talking about this a lot, where he says it feels a little bit like TVT. But I mean, we play it in TVT. If you need a lot of gas, we might as well just take it. As before, it was really standard to just get barracks 2 and 3. This does delay the third barracks by a little bit, but it gets that tank and Raven out real nice and fast. Gives it a bit of extra safety.
Yeah, the Raven's going to be especially useful if we end up seeing what you were talking about from Astrea. He's going to go into those Colossus. Oh, the blink forward! Almost snags that medevac, and now the medevac is going to be so low on hit points, it really doesn't have an opportunity to move in. If there are any stalkers around, it's going to have a hard time unloading any of those Widow Mines. The first Widow Mine just going to burrow behind that third base, and not sure if Astrea actually spotted that out.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he did. It is a pretty tricky location. Astrea did see it, of course. He's going to blink away. And this is kind of what I was afraid of. If uThermal would start doing things like this, is really quite standard. I mean, it's a triple mine drop into Raven tank. This has been cookie cutter for the past 4 years. And I think this is where Astrea really does shine. He's getting that forge and the fast charge. Seems to be skipping on that Robobay that I kind of was hoping for and that I've seen him play a lot before. Then again, it is Curious Minds and it is difficult to fight near a battery, so I don't even mind it too much. Fast forge, charge, add a couple of gateways and maybe even chrono boost out 1 or 2 immortals before this 3-Rex push will hit.
Yeah, and he's going to have some time for that to still all kick in as all of those gateways are starting to flood on forward. Widowmine is going to try and sneak on forward. We already see a warp in for a couple of Zealots over here. Looks like Astrea finds it at the last minute. He's going to be able to soften up that medevac even further. One more Widowmine going to try and burrow in. Not going to be able to find a whole lot right now, but uThermal definitely trying to find the most value you can because, frankly, Astrea's just not been messed with very much, like you were saying.
Yeah, this is good,
did he
though.
just get the sentry? No. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, getting 4 workers, denying a lot of mining here as well, and I think he managed to keep the medevac alive, right? Or did it just end up dying? No, it's still alive.
It's flying off in the corner, yeah.
2 more workers will fall against this auto turret, and uThermal might send this Raven back with the main push as well. He could, of course, come back in with a turret later on. It's nice to have that turret because it forces a couple of Stalker warp-ins at home, which tends to lay either Immortals or extra infrastructure out of the Protoss player.
So what is the big sign for when that big push out is going to come from uThermal with all the flood of barracks and everything he had earlier?
Well, probably the stim and the combat shield. And I think you have to wait for combat shield there. You can't fight pre-combat shield. It isn't, well, it's actually kind of properly timed up together with +1 as well. Third, of course, on the way. And Astrea actually needs to start warping in kind of quickly. He went for a Prism before Immortal.
He's supply block right now. He has 3 pylons on the way.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of money as well. Cess is getting pretty jealous seeing that bank.
It's going to get a little bit tense because he really doesn't have a whole lot of time to spend that bank to try and get up the defenses over here. uThermal's already at his front door. Stalkers blink on forward to try and pick off a couple of these units. Charge Lot's going to start moving on forward. Force Seal's trying to keep out some of this army. Siege checks are pretty far back, and that is going to buy Astrea a little bit of time to warp in some more Zealots. But look at that bank, like you were saying, there's still 800 minerals left unspent. He's actually trying to start up some more pylons right now, but frankly, I think he's just a little bit further behind on that production.
Yeah, it's okay though. If he doesn't die in the next, well, 45 seconds, he will be able to spend that money. It's not like he wanted to probe up too much. He's actually going for a counter attack here. That might be a little bit too risky, given that there is 4 Widow Mines here. There's still a Raven with a decent amount of energy as well. I would not recommend this play. I think this is the correct play. Getting extra gases. The Templar Archives also is a bit risky because it is late in the game, and the Ghost Academy will go down naturally pretty soon. That's a cool pickup here. I think this is already kind of anticipating this potential drop.
Yeah, we see on the minimap that uThermal did pick up some of those units, already unloaded, and the main base has the missile turrets being built as a ring around. So I think it is a great identification because that War Prism is getting ready to move on in. Potentially trying to time out with these Stalkers poking on forward. Stalkers taking some heavy losses over there in the hit points, and even 1 or 2 of them end up falling.
uThermal so far not getting an armory or getting that Ghost Academy. I think this is actually quite late. I'm surprised to see this. Okay, here comes the armory, and then I guess a second eBay will be... No, he cancelled the armory. He started it, now cancels it.
Starts it again further back, I guess? He just replaces it a little bit further back, maybe a little bit tucked away, and I guess it'll time out closer with +1 armor finishing up, so he can start up +2 weapons to +2 armor soon, but he is really going to be banking quite a bit on this push first, making something happen.
Yeah, definitely. And he actually managed to sneak into an insanely good position here without Astrea really noticing. Mines are in good positions. I don't think Storm is quite done yet, is it? We see a couple of feedbacks going down. And the RM missiles hitting big as well. Tanks dishing out so much damage there in the back. I think this fort base almost needs to be cancelled.
A couple of these Widowmines going to be able to hit a good chunk of the Zealots as they get softened up. The Stalker count is also pretty heavily reduced. Really, it is just the fact that Storm is about to finish up that is going to be able to keep uThermal at bay. He doesn't know exactly when it's going to finish, but he's got to have a sense that those High Templar are around for a reason.
Yeah, it's actually crazy. I think that uThermal could have done more over there, but because his army is so heavy on the Marines and he still saw 3 Templar with more than 80 energy, he's like, yeah, perhaps not today, buddy. And I don't usually mind the armory and the fast second eBay, but he picked incorrectly here because his opponent is banking heavily on Templar Archives, and it was an odd decision. Like I mentioned before, I would have much preferred seeing the Colossi there perhaps because it was so late, and uThermal kind of anticipated Colossi going for that second eBay and the armory. But now the Ghost Academy is really delayed. He's fighting against Storm, a huge gateway army. He might be in a bit of trouble, as this upcoming fight could be dangerous. There's 3 Storms here. There's a bunch of Archons as well. Without Ghost, this is going to be really tricky, Fear Dragon.
Yeah, and there's a good economy behind all this for Astrea with the 4 bases as well. And now Astrea is going to be able to find uThermal a bit out of position. This is going to get a little bit awkward as all the charge outs are on the south side, but the Storm covers his retreat so well. It's going to end up having to morph in a handful of his Archons, so he doesn't really have too many Storms left over. The Zealots getting so close to setting off all those Widowmines finally takes a big one, loses the Archons, loses loses the Immortals, and it looks like might lose one final Archon on the retreat. An expensive trade there for Astrea.
Yeah, and I think that uThermal might be setting up for an extremely powerful 2-2 Ghost push over here. 2-2 should be close to finishing, and the Ghost Academy has finished up as well. 4GC is being built, Sensor Tower finishes up, and uThermal once again wants to grab a little bit of map control. Medevac count is absolutely bananas, and I think it might be time to start building a couple of Vikings, sprinkling them in here and there, making sure that you're ready for that potential Colossi switch, which inevitably is coming right in this matchup.
Yeah, I think that's going to definitely be coming since we have Thermal Lance on the way and the Colossus already being made right now. Man, the missile turrets have been doing such a good job of preventing the Warpers from getting anything done, whether it be at the natural expansion, the main base, or what have you. And this army for uThermal is charging across the map, looking for any observers they can pick off. There is another observer that he just barely misses out on, so it sees this whole army moving on forward, and that is going to give Astrea a little bit of time to get set up over at this low ground 4th base.
Yeah, uThermal does start his Viking production right now, but because he's playing 8 Rex before a second starport, I really do believe you need almost constant production out of that starport usually, and his Viking count is just going to be pretty low. However, there's a powerful push coming in here. There is 4 Ghosts, there's a couple of EMPs still available, Mines are there as well, and 2-2 has finished up, but this Zealot run by is going to force uThermal back.
Yeah, he pulls all the way back home and has to leave the Widow Mines left around as well. There is an observer somewhat nearby, but it doesn't look like Astrea quite notices the Widow Mines, so gonna take a little bit longer to actually clean that up and at least softens up some of those Zealots. Another Zealot run by on the south side as well, going to be actually encountering the main army very shortly. Astrea ends up pulling those Zealots back, but identifying the angle that army is coming in from really important right now.
Yeah, 4 Colossi against 2 Viking though, that's not a pretty sight if you're a Terran player, no matter how many EMPs you have available or how good your upgrades are. And honestly, Astrea getting better upgrades at this point as well. +3 attack about to finish, +3 armor just now starting, Disruptors already being pumped out. And very often what you want as a Terran, you want to kind of preempt the Colossi transition by getting Vikings early, and then once the Disruptor starts getting pumped out, get that second port, get a couple of Liberators in, make sure those ship weapons are already on the way. uThermal is just a bit behind tech-wise here.
Yeah, is it just the extra starports and stuff we want to see uThermal be able to add on?
No, I think if you go 8 Rex, it's fine to delay that second starport for very long because you're producing so much bio and you're playing with a high medevac count. But I think for too long he just wasn't producing anything out of that one starport, and that really isn't allowed.
Oh, Disruptor shot is going to get target fired down and knocks it out. The second Disruptor also getting down to half its hit points very, very quickly. So Astrea's going to have to back off over there. But he's keeping that base safe. He is going to be able to deal with the multi-pronged aggression that uThermal is setting up. He's attacking up on this north side, but he's also setting up a second attack on the south. Ends up pulling that back, though, right now, as I think he's just got his hands full dealing with Disruptors.
Yeah. Also, if you're playing 8 Rex, I do believe it's really important to continue upgrades very fast. And 3-3 hasn't started yet. I think 2-2 finished almost 2 minutes ago at this point. So uThermal is going to be fighting with a pure bio army against a very well-rounded TOS army. That's also going to be up 2 upgrades. I think the only thing he can do at this point is base trade.
I don't actually hate that idea because he's certainly not going to be winning this fight over here. He does find all the Colossus pretty unprepared right now. Charge Lot's not really on the front lines, and that may be a saving grace over here, but at the same time, he is going to have to try and defend on the top right-hand side where he's going to be losing a base. Shield Battery Overcharge going to try and make this engagement a little bit closer. A lot of this Bioforce is very stemmed up, but it just has done a little bit too much damage. It starts to overpower. Astrea over here knocking out a lot of probes. Disruptor is not going to be able to get a shot off. Neither one of them do, and Astrea has to pull the remainder of his army back.
Yeah, I do believe this army will be big enough to push back uThermal's army. uThermal still hasn't started 3-3. It's also a pretty bruised up army at this point. Disruptor shots will get to connect, and some of these medevacs will get taken out most likely. All of the Vikings now disappearing as well. There is potential for a very powerful counterattack here out of Astrea, and if that medevac falls, had some supply in it. This is going to be quite painful. Luckily, no Prism here, so uThermal does have that going for himself. But there's no Vikings in this army. There's a couple of EMPs, but being down upgrades, Disruptors being out without any real counter. Yeah, life's going to be rough.
Yeah, a couple of those EMPs still have softened up some of that army, like you were saying, but there's nothing to really deal with the Colossus, let alone the Disruptors just continuing to force this army to stem on back. Just because, like you said, there's no Liberators. A handful more Vikings are being made right now, but Astrea is actually expanding during all of this. uThermal still just sticking around, trying to get up those 4 bases to actually mine properly.
Yeah, finally starts +3 as well. He must have just forgotten it, honestly, because this
Or
is
just
kind
thought it started a while ago or something.
Yeah, that's what I think, that he thought he already clicked it. Probably just didn't have the money. That's extremely frustrating here for the Dutch Terran. Disruptor count has grown an insane amount. And if you don't have any Liberators in this case, I do think you need to get some type of map control. What's the Disruptor count currently? I think we're 5, 6? Yeah, 5 Disruptors. You have almost constant Disruptor balls. I mean, with the Bioforce, it's just not fightable. I love that he's splitting his army. This is 100% the correct decision. Going for that map vision, going for that map control, being capable of taking out bases, forcing out a recall. Now the left side army should start marching towards those bottom side bases. I don't think these armies should join up, unless you can sandwich this.
Well, he's going to be able to sandwich this, but Astrea's also going to get his own sandwich going, but the Stalkers are not really the units you want to be sandwiching with alone. Disruptors coming in a little bit late for the charge. Disruptors going to be able to get some okay connections off, but the Colossus really putting in work, and Astrea is absolutely annihilating that segment of the force for uThermal.
Yeah, I don't think that army actually should have gone for that sandwich. They should have kept those split at least until the 3-3 finishes up. Otherwise, it just becomes really difficult. 11 more Zealots on the way here for Astrea. 2 Disruptors as well being pushed out as the Dark Shrine is about to finish. And there's a crap ton of gas in the bank here, Ravi.
Oh, man. 2 more Disruptors being added on alongside all the existing Disruptors that are around. This is going to make it so tough for uThermal, who is actually retreating back that top right-hand base because he realized it's not really something he can defend right now. He is already very strapped of their army supply to just put it in the right position right now.
Yeah, there's no Ghost in his army. 4 more are on the way. You know, I wouldn't even mind if Astrea would just attack at this point with a Prism. He's like 7 Disruptors. I do understand why he isn't doing it, because his eco position is good. He has fantastic upgrades, and once you get that DT ball going, life just becomes so much easier as a Pearls, as long as your opponent doesn't have these Liberators, doesn't have these fortified positions near the planetaries. And uThermal tends to be a player that likes to be out on the map. And if you're out on the map, you're not defending your planetary against 10 Blinky boys.
Yeah. If you want to see Astrea try and do some of those move outs, I know that you were saying the counterattack potential there for uThermal is one of those things that could really cause a lot of problems, especially as Astrea starts taking further and further spread out bases. What are some of the tools he has available to actually deal with some of that stuff?
Yeah, I don't know.
Fair enough.
You just get good map vision, I guess.
Get better,
like,
yeah.
Get good sun. No, as long as you have good map vision, I think it shouldn't be too much of an issue. That's really just the thing. And you see they're constantly battling over these towers. They're absolutely essential on this map specifically. uThermal is the kind of player, though, that could very sneakily take out the middle rocks at some point and just get a position there. That is something that is possible, but in general, the watchtowers are just going to be absolutely key here.
Disruptor is going to be able to zone back a lot of this army, and during all this, the rest of the Disruptors go after the SCVs. Planetary Fortress gets focused right down for a little bit, but we end up seeing a recall in a very interesting timing. The Planetary Fortress survives, and while a couple of SCVs go down, I'm pretty sure Astrea is not going to be happier with that trade.
I think I don't really think uThermal can counterattack at this point. That's really the issue. So any damage you do to the eco, it's honestly fine. As long as your opponent isn't maxed and he isn't mining more than you, I think Astrea is going to be happy with most trades, to be honest. Yeah,
that's a fair point. I was thinking more along the lines of 61 workers mining off of 2 bases. Not exactly going to be finding the most use, so... But that's still going to be a tough spot right here. Observer going to catch wind of this army moving along the north side, sneaks his DTs right past that army while he hits the south yet again. This time, Planetary Fortress, no chance of survival, and uThermal just has to evacuate what he can.
Yeah, and he does manage to get out with 3 medevacs. At the same time, he is counter-attacking with his army. 100% the correct decision once again. DTs are not going in. Not sure if they want to defend that fort base or what their plan is. I think there's going to be a full-on base trade here, Fear Dragon, as uThermal isn't returning back home. There is a couple of DTs on the way back home and perhaps some Disruptors that can be built. Oh my god, 11 DTs on the way right now.
Oh, that's going to be extremely useful in these kind of base trading situations, but these DTs still kind of stalling out. I am surprised. I thought they would try and go in for one of those bases, make use of the time that this army's out of position, but he is really going for critical massive DTs right now.
He can practically one-shot a planetary at this point. Even an orbital can't lift in time. Like, the animation will be too slow. A couple of Disruptor shots, not coming up yet. Okay, there we go. Does get pretty decent hit so far, but DTs are not with this army. There's a lot of supply in DTs currently. And while they're killing a lot of stuff on the other side, to be fair, but I'm not quite sure if this was necessary for Astrea. He could have just straight up fought his army.
Yeah, at this point now, the Bioforce has taken out so much of the Zealot, Stalker, I guess the rest of the important units like the Disruptors, and it does become very complicated now for Astrea. He can continue to just try and pick off the orbitals, forcing them to lift up, making things a little bit more complicated, and even reducing scans available. I think that there's only maybe, what, 2 orbitals left for scans?
Yeah, but look at his army. It's like the Dutch army. It's all orange, my friend. This is beautiful to see for me, but not so great for uThermal. GG gets called as the DTs go absolutely ham in the natural. And Astrea takes game number 1 here on one of the Terran maps. This is important to note as well, as Curious Mind is a really difficult map to play against Terran. And Astrea made it look, well, kind of easy.
Yeah, it definitely got a little bit tricky there in like maybe the mid-game stage where uThermal was able to put on some pressure, but like you were saying before, there was just that mass swell of bases and everything that Astrea had. He was getting ahead in tech, and I think that was the other thing that you were also mentioning. Even the upgrades, it really did feel like uThermal falling behind. You imagine some of those exchanges that they were making. If uThermal was at least keeping up with some of those upgrades, maybe things could have gone a little bit better. It's just tough when you're falling behind in like multiple regards like that.
Yeah, especially in the upgrades. It's so important when you're playing this type of style where you're really heavily relying on that type of army splitting and you want to be fighting against gateway units mainly, that you actually can properly fight against gateway units, because during large parts of that game, he couldn't fight against gateway armies, and then his army sucks. He doesn't have the tech. He's not going to get a second port for a very, very long time. And his Viking count was honestly too low as well. These were, yeah, it's very frustrating for him, obviously. And Astrea, well, honestly, taking good advantage of all these little things that he got during the game.
Yeah. Now, I do actually want to mention something that's unrelated to this particular series. We do actually have some of the players who have already advanced on to the group stages and everything, and we do have some results for which players who have already qualified for that group stage have actually made it into which groups. So we know where Beyond, and I believe we also should know where, what was it? Not Nice. Spirit have ended up in the groups. If we take a look, I think that actually we see Spirit in Group A. So Spirit is in a group with Rogue, Cure, Solar, Neeb, and Dream. And then we also had, I believe, Group D get Beyond, which Group D, for those who don't know, was Maru, Clem, Raynor, Scarlet, and Zaun. So you add Beyond in there, and that's actually just now the true group of the death.
Yeah, it already probably was a group of that, and now it's a super group of that. To be fair, it is one of the groups that Beyond asked to be, because he wanted 1 day break. So he gets his 1 day break and doesn't have to play tomorrow.
What a trade.
And Spirit also wanted a 1 day break, but got Group A instead. So yeah, it's cool for these guys that they already know their group. These players, however, are not even sure yet whether they will be allowed into the group stage, Fear Dragon.
Yeah, that is going to be a tough place to be, as there are now just, at least they know they're in either Group B or Group C. So the winner of this is going to end up in one of those 2 groups, and the loser is just, you know, going to get knocked out of IEM Katowice. Their run is going to be over. So everything on the line. At this point, you'll take whatever group you can get.
Yeah, definitely, as uThermal puts on his hood here. Astrea still looking honestly pretty fresh for how long this day has been for him as well, obviously. Same can be said for uThermal.
Yeah, it really is one of those things that I think is underrated, especially when it's been such a long time since we've been at these offline events for a lot of these European and North American players, where as the day goes on, the weariness starts setting in. This is only day 1, but I mean, these players have been basically coming in since before the event started, trying to warm up, playing from the very beginning, playing so many different rounds, waiting for your matches. It is grueling, and it is also a separate battle against just yourself and your own exhaustion.
Yeah, Spirit mentioned it as well. After the interview, he said, well, before I had to play against Nice, my brain was fried already. So I can't even imagine what happened with his brain during that series. Double fried.
At this point, it's really going to be a testament to both of these players if they can hold it in and just reduce as many of those mistakes as possible. I mean, it is probably part of the reason why we see these things, like maybe missing those upgrades that you thought you were going for. We're going to see if he can try to make something happen, turn the series around. He is uThermal from Team Liquid.
And in the bottom left is a blue Protoss player playing for Team Alpha X. It is Astrea. 2K atmospheres here, and this is a map where Astrea is going to feel a little more comfortable on. At least I assume he feels a little more comfortable on it. uThermal, sometimes when he falls behind early on, he gets a little bit cheesy, starts proxying some barracks, gets that second gas going. But so far he seems to be disciplined to the plan. Well, unless the plan was to get two gas, and he hasn't been very disciplined at all. Get that second gas in that case, uThermal, but doesn't quite seem to be the case. As I'm very curious to see what his opener is going to be. He has been showing some weird stuff. I think I saw a Thor build earlier today.
Yeah. Thor SCV pull from uThermal against a Protoss player, actually.
Did he sneak that SCV out, or is that going to scout? I'm never quite sure, but sometimes when Terrans move their SCVs out of their base and the pro barely misses it, it already feels kind of sneaky. I don't like it. I've lost too many factories in my life that were proxied right next to my base.
Every Terran player out there right now is just actually bewildered at the idea of a Protoss player complaining about the other race's workers. Every other race is just always concerned about the probe sneaking around. You're the one concerned about the SCV, but I mean, with good reason.
Yeah, it does pop out here. So you see it with your pylon, you're going to be a happy man. You know, there's no building on the map. It's going to be that command center. Oh, look at that. Factory before reactor here out of uThermal. And I love this play so much. This is, for the people who do not know, and that's not a bad thing necessarily, I'll explain to you what this actually means. This is similar to what a gas first does for a Terran. It allows you to get the factory faster, like how gas first used to work with the Reaper. Nowadays, we can just play Marine into the factory before reactor. It means you have 2 less Marines when that first adept hits, so you only have a single Marine, and that's a very scary thought for a lot of people. However, it does allow you to get the factory units out about 18 seconds earlier for any potential... Oh, I think it's going to be a proxy starport, actually. Look at that SCV.
Ooh.
Yeah, this is a classic location. He checked the watchtower to make sure it was out of watchtower vision, and this should actually be out of vision of this adept as well, if he did it properly.
I believe so. Just a tiny bit more vision than it looks like the scouting probe got, but definitely not far enough to actually go into range of that Stargate or Starport. Now, the single Marine, is that going to be enough of a reveal for Astrea? Does seeing just that single Marine, and I guess now you see also the reactor factory, that should be enough to know, right? That something is up.
Yeah, this is not possible if you play Barracks Reactor, yeah, definitely. So uThermal will even show these Hellions, but you don't know if this is a proxy starport or if this is going to be another very common build, which actually is the Hellion into 4 mine drops. Oh my god, he sees it!
That is a beautiful scout, and that adept should be able to actually shade out over here, delaying those Hellions, getting a shot off on them as well. That's going to actually soften them up for the defense. And now, you know, get your units in position to help deal with the medevac.
Yeah, it's actually going for a double chrono boost. I have never seen this response before. That's pretty cool. He's going to get 4 units pre-warp gate. He'll be able to warp in 1 unit, so I guess he'll get like 5 stalkers and at the depth. The problem for Astrea still in this case is that he doesn't know where this is going to hit. This can hit in the main, this can also hit in the natural, so you need to kind of spread out your units. I love the way he's doing that, by the way. uThermal's going for the ramp. Astrea sees it. Perfect defense here out of the American, and this looked very easy, but this could have been very different had he not seen that starport.
Yeah, we've seen so many times that those Hellions just get to wreak havoc on a Protoss player. Now, how important is it to just hit that timing? Because otherwise, you know, the more time the Protoss has, the more units they have to spread out around their bases.
Yeah, it's huge. Actually, this medevac's still going to get in, though. And oh my god, Astrea barely missing it. These Hellions are going to kill 5-6 workers. That's kind of good for a drop that got spotted. Oh,
he tries to body block it a little bit with those stalkers, doesn't quite manage it. Focus fires down the medevac first with a handful of those stalkers, which means these Hellions have a little bit more free reign. 5 workers killed. Is that actually going to be enough to justify this?
So I mean, this is a fine attack. This is fine damage. Very often it's more about what the counter attack does, more so than what, you know. Obviously, if you get 15 workers, that's great, and then the counter attack needs to do a whole lot more. You probably need to kill 2 command centers, but in this case, if you take out 1 or 2 workers, or maybe you take a Marine out, force a bunker on the high ground, probably is going to be enough. This is not a huge influence on the game. Double forces being thrown down as well here for Astrea, and it gets scanned immediately. That's kind of nice there for uThermal. That was a good scan. It's an early scan as well. Very often you see Terran scan as they plan to move out with their first 2 medevacs. Freaking uThermal just does it when he just starts stim. So it's kind of early, but I don't mind it. He gets the info, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, now he can react appropriately with the right information. Now, Observer's going to move across the map over here for Astrea and get his own little sense of a scan out. He's going to be able to confirm just the setup over here, sees the siege tank well situated, back and behind a lot of the production. It's going to be hard to get a whole lot of damage done over there with the Blink Stalkers unless you're really, really on point. And Astrea is actually mostly just going to be focusing on getting up his production, getting up charge, getting up that double upgrade going as fast as possible to try and power forward on just having strong gateway units.
Yeah, it's interesting to see what Astrea will exactly do for. Will he get very aggressive? Does he want to kind of defend with these upgrades? We don't see any gateways on the map proxied yet. Now it's getting a fort base. This is getting some nice vibes over here, Fear Dragon. And I'm not sure if I'm liking it.
He's only on 2 gas right now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I think we might be seeing some of our favorite units from today. A lot of charge lots, Kevin.
Yeah, well upgraded charge lots as well.
Yeah.
A couple of turrets being thrown down. Oh, the fourth base. 3 extra gateways as well, still finishing up. So you have barracks 4 and 5 about to finish up. There's no third CC yet either, right?
I don't think I see
5
one
rack.
right now.
So, well, if you go 5 racks before 3 CC, usually you don't really get another third CC for a very, very long time. He's not even getting any tech labs or reactors on these barracks. He wants to use them immediately. So this really just boosts that initial push by a little bit. It's really going to be 4 or 5 extra Marines. But if your opponent is taking a 4th base, and as a Terran you're playing 5 racks, it's kind of a dream scenario, honestly.
Yeah, and I'm really waiting to see where is the fight actually going to be taking place over here, because it's also going to be very important with this army for uThermal. You have not only siege tanks, but also widow mines that need to be well situated to actually take a good fight. And all of those charge lots have been warped in. The 3rd Nexus is also finished on up. I don't know if, the 4th Nexus is also finished on up. So he actually also has a opportunity to potentially transfer additional workers if it starts getting really unsafe at that 3rd base. But right now with Guardian Shield plus that 1/1 upgrade, I think it's going to be really tough for this army to make a whole lot happen without the Widow Mines. Oh my god! He does one of the sickest charge tricks ever! Focus fires the charge on the back Marines so he can actually get further back and splash on the Marines.
Yeah, the charge look insane.
There's a trick about it, actually. Yeah. There's a special trick. After the charge activates, you can retarget the charge on further back units, and the charge will just last for a lot longer.
Yeah, they should nerf that. It's unbelievable. All these Triarch Protoss players with their tricks, just A-move them like the rest of us, man. Unbelievable. This is kind of annoying for uThermal right now because he doesn't have a 3rd base. He's gonna pull the boys here. Doesn't manage to snipe the Observer before the Observer sees it. Astrea has absolutely no clue what's going on. He threw down a Robo Bay and a 2nd robotics facility, started a Prism as well. Like Astrea is living his best life over here. Yeah, he sees it now. He's like, oh, let me quickly cancel that. But he had absolutely no idea. At this point, he actually should do what you mentioned before. I think you go for a run by with 6 to 7 zealots and you pretend to defend the 3rd base. But in reality, you're mining from the 4th already. So why do you give a crap? I'm not sure if I like a base trade here, actually, because it feels like he should be winning the fight anyway, or he at least can stall for a long time until 2-2.
Yeah, he is going to be able to at least get in the warp in the main base as well, which should slow down any reinforcements and shut down all mining. There's 0 mining going to be happening here for uThermal, but now 2-2 is going to get stalled on out and likely killed. This is just going to get really messy. Now, I do like that Astrea has already started taking, say, the 5th base. That's actually in the center left side. So he's going to have more bases spread around. There's just more units or more buildings that uThermal actually has to take care of. But I love the way that uThermal's spreading things out.
Yeah, I actually think this was a slight error here out of Astrea. Like, taking the 5th base is nice, but if you have no production, it's going to be completely useless. uThermal will be able to take a defensive position here. He has more SCVs there with his army. He has a command center flying back home, and he still has production. He can actually take a defensive position and force Astrea to attack into it. This is way better than it ever would have been. Astrea could have just defended any position he would have wanted to, with most likely 2-2. Oh my god, all of these mines.
Oh no, Kevin, not like this. He does finally take care of all these widow mines, and they are revealed since there is no armory or anything over here. But look at all these zealots that had to go down in exchange for that. That was very painful, and I mean, there's not really a whole lot of reproducing units. The supply counts have actually evened up.
Yeah, at this point, I actually believe if uThermal just sits back, he's super far ahead. He has like 20 more workers than his opponent. He still has production on the map. I think uThermal should just build a wall with these buildings and not let anyone through.
It's an interesting place to try and land this orbital command. It's going to create a wall for sure, but is that his last orbital command?
Yeah.
I think it is, yeah. The other one did get picked off by the Stalkers. Sieging up these Siege Tanks, going around this choke is not what Astrea wants to do. Oh no. Is it what he wants to do? Okay, Astrea giving a little bit of a hard tuck there, but it looks like uThermal's going to find the last remaining mining base at the moment here for Astrea. And Astrea is just going to have to try and get some mining going over in the old main base of uThermal, which doesn't really have a whole lot left to it right now.
I think uThermal is misreading this game as well. He should just be defending here. There's no reason for him to attack, but he probably believes there's more probes on the map right now.
I mean, he's been finding Nexus after Nexus. I don't blame him for not knowing 100% how good of a spot he could be in.
Yeah, and the funny thing is Astrea is aware, but he doesn't really want to make uThermal aware of this fact yet. So Astrea is just actually playing this really slow, and I don't even mind that, because he wants uThermal to move out on the map. That's the only way Astrea can win. If uThermal is sieged up, you're not going to attack into what is it, 3 tanks and 3 mines? Good luck, buddy. Especially if there's a wall in front of that.
You know, the other really funny thing is that neither one of these players, even if they got mining up, it's going to take such a long time to ever get to a point where you're actually reinforcing your army because you're so heavily supply bound. uThermal has 100 of 1 of 15 supply. Astrea's going to have to make at least 4 or 5 pylons, and that's already a lot of resources to devote to something that you're not entirely sure is going to be able to stay alive.
Yeah, okay, this is exactly what uThermal should be doing. I would even love for the starport on the factory to form a bit of a wall as well. Get a bunker up maybe even. I think he realized what type of position he's currently in. And now we really see the consequences of Astrea's action of going for that base trade. I mean, not having the 2-2 here, not having any mining, no production left. I don't think any of this would have happened. There's a couple of scans available as well, and that left side flank is covered by the mines. uThermal needs to be so darn careful though. Now he sees this army move in.
Oh, that is not the way that you want to engage into those Widow mines. He's going to get the wraparound on some of those siege tanks, picks those off, but the Bioforce stems forward because he knows how good of a spot he's in after all of that. All of the charge lots disappear, the Stalkers disappear, and very soon Astrea is going to be disappearing from this game.
Yeah, absolutely fabulous play out of uThermal, honestly. It's crazy how difficult it is to understand what type of position you're in without any info whatsoever. All you're seeing is Nexi after Nexi. GG gets called. This honestly is an insanely well-played game here by uThermal. uThermal never should have won this. He gets the win, and yeah, I'm honestly really impressed here by the Dutchie.
I mean, just some of that experience, right? Being able to take a step back in those very, very tense moments of a base trade at the end of an extremely long day and say, okay, what do I know? What don't I know? Let's make a calculated decision based on the information I have and just go with wherever it can take me. And Astrea not able to make the most of that base trade that he himself started, like you said.
Yeah, and Astrea probably feeling quite gutted here. I mean, he was in such a solid position. He got that information. The fact that he was starting a second robo and a robo away still making me giggle. I was like, oh my god, Astrea, you were very, very blind this game. I mean, he didn't know about the lack of a third base, didn't know about the 4th and the 5th barracks. Once he saw those SCV, he was like, oh, I guess I'll cancel these 2 bad boys. Yeah, it's absolutely wild. uThermal's going to be really happy with that win. It's kind of funny that they traded maps there as well. Curious Mind went to Astrea, and then 2K Atmosphere going to uThermal.
Already,
and we got an even series again. Practically playing a best of 3 at this point, and they played a couple of those already today, so we should have some experience with that.
Yeah, got their little vetoes in, but just traded the maps on the maps they were not supposed to win. But now we get to move into the maps that you'd normally see for a best of 3 between these 2 types of players. It is going to be a fun game number 3 though, because I think after a game like that, where there is that crazy base rate and everything, I'm sure you know more than most people that there is a little bit of that feeling of momentum of you just lost the game that you had won. It was spiraling a little bit out of control in a very hectic way and everything. It's not a good feeling coming in, even though maybe you've actually been ahead in both of these games now.
Yeah, it does not feel great, let me tell you. It does not feel great. However, of course, Astrea is a very experienced competitor, and he should be able to think about it kind of logically, like, hey, that was one mistake, and everything kind of flowed out of that one mistake, right? The base trade call was incorrect, but from there on out, honestly, he played fine. It just was one big decision where he actually made the mistake. You should look at it and be like, okay, I can analyze that. I just won't make that mistake again. And he could make like a mental note saying, okay, he's willing to play things like 5 Rex right now. That's the sign of a desperate man, honestly. Like 5 Rex is a really uncommon build, and SCV pools are just not that common anymore in PvT. Seeing this type of play, I think Astrea just makes a mental note. Okay, I need to be a little bit more careful. If we get into a standard game, I think I'll be fine. Curious Mind showed that. And I think even the last game kind of showed that as well. Like, it was going to play out very much in Astrea's favor until he made the mistake.
All right, well, we're heading into map number 3 with the tie-up series 1-1 on top of the top right-hand player, the Red Terran from Team Liquid. He is uThermal.
In the bottom left as the blue Protoss player for Team Alpha X, it is Astrea.
I love those killer blue eyes from Mark Schlappy poking on out, but this is going to be a different kind of killer blue eye that we're seeing over here as Astrea plops down one of those nice early pylons across the map as he gets up a gateway back at home.
This is really good for uThermal, by the way. Double gas opener against a proxy gate.
Yeah, that's going to make things very complicated for Astrea, and I am sure when Astrea finally pokes on forward with this probe, as he tries to even make it look like it's coming from a normal scouting path, he is probably not going to be thrilled at his discovery.
Yeah, I wonder if he'll scout for both gases, actually. Yeah, he will. Okay, yeah, of course.
Is there a way that you can react to this as a Protoss player?
I mean, it's not the end of the world, because very often with 2 gas, Terran doesn't actually SCV scout. They'll use their first Reaper to scout around the map. If they don't find the gateway, it's actually not that bad, because Reapers and Hellions don't fight too well against Stalkers and Adepts. You can force a lot of mining time. However, if it gets scouted, they get a bunker. Terran just has such a quick tech. They can get mine drops with like an armory or something like that. Or, well, in uThermal's case, we could even maybe see a Thor drop after a mine drop with an armory as well. So there's a lot of options available for the Terran player. It's really important that the Terran does spot it. Let's take a look at that path of the Reaper. Yep, that's going to figure it out. If he continues, no, he changed the path. He had it ready there. On
the south side instead. Oh, that is going to be a painful one. And the Stalkers are going to be popping out on both sides as well. So there's going to be a Stalker to greet that Reaper back at home for Astrea. You can help deal with that. Oh, the Reaper darts back around. Is he? Man, is there something that he saw from that probe, or like the timing of the probe, that really just set him off to scout everywhere for that?
I think you always do this when you play double gas. Your first Reaper can't really go across the map majority of the time anyway. If you're not scouting, you kind of have to play this. Sucks that uThermal already threw down that CC on the low ground. If this was a high ground CC, this would be the best scenario imaginable here. No bunker though. I don't mind it too much. I guess he'll get a Cyclone first. Could also opt for a tank. No, it's gonna go for a Cyclone. I think that's the correct call. Without a bunker, one of the depots might fall though. 2 Reapers will make their way across the map. Astrea immediately recognized that. You see that? Sends his Stalkers back. Like, wait a second. I think there should be 2 Reapers here at the top of the ramp. And if they aren't there, well, probably going to my main base, to my natural.
Yeah, he did have the Stalker popping up back at home, but 2 Reapers is a little bit more DPS than usual, so a second Stalker popping out should signal the ability for Astrea to finally deal with this, and he's actually going hunting for those Reapers, which, funny enough, have split up, but Astrea just barely going to miss out on actually both of them as they both escape to safety.
Yeah, well played out of uThermal, honestly. He did everything correct here, I do believe so. Got a bit unlucky that he scouted that later on rather than with the initial Reaper path that he had set out. We'll be able to take out the pylon here, and with the Cyclone on the map, might even be able to take out a Stalker if it does decide to move out. But I don't think there's any Stalkers currently on the map, so absolutely fantastic opener here. 3 Reapers still alive, and without a Reaper wall on the high ground, these Reapers could actually deal a lot of damage. Is there a battery in the main base for Astrea? There's not. No. I wouldn't mind that.
Pylon's going to be starting on up, as losing that pylon did set him a bit further back behind. Goes after the Reaper first, is going to be taking quite a bit of damage on that first Stalker. Loses it to the Cyclone. Focus fires down the Cyclone, doesn't quite kill it, but kills a second one of the Reapers. Softens up that Cyclone, 1 hit point remaining. Good save there by uThermal.
Yeah, still a brilliant trade though for Astrea, kind of taking away that threat of the potential Reapers, seeing the Cyclone as well, being like, okay, you have a Cyclone, means there's not going to be a quick mine drop. This is a lot of info that Astrea just got there, and he also just got the security that the Reapers aren't alive anymore, and then, well, you don't actually have to build the battery anymore. Is he playing 4-gate Blink, or is this...
He's adding on 3 more gateways, so I think it was just Twilight Robo before that, so I think that takes us up to 4 gates.
Well, technically 5, because there's still one on the map. You could repower that.
Yeah, that's true, if he repowers it. It might be a little bit tough to get out there right now, but, well, Blink about halfway done. War Prism starting on up. It does seem like Astrea wants to start getting a little bit further across the map and more in uThermal's face.
Yeah, it's an interesting decision as well, because very often after 2 gas openers, the tank count will rise quickly. Raven is not moving on the map yet, so uThermal wants to either use it with his push or realizes that something is up.
I love the spread of the gateways also. As the Reaper came in to scout the main, it sees like 1 or 2 of the gateways. It actually doesn't look that crazy. You just saw the Robo and I think 2 or 3 gateways.
Yeah, but also saw the lack of the third, I think, at least initially. So there's a bit of a tell there. It's he's not completely blind. Observer actually gets taken out, which is a big... There's no bunker though. Wait, is actually no bunker?
Not in the natural, and nothing over in the main base besides that tank. The tank is well positioned over there to try and hit any units that start popping up to the high ground, but it is also still going to be a bit vulnerable and take a while for the bio units to get up there.
Without a bunker, this is really difficult to hold. It just is.
Astrea is also going to get the clear blink up. He snipes off that siege tank in a matter of seconds and does some beautiful micro with that Warp Prism as well, picking off some of these Marines. He's going to force some SCVs being pulled off the line, and Blink should be off a cooldown now, so he can actually start to blink these Stalkers out to safety.
Yeah, Astrea should be rotating between the main and the natural right now. He probably believes there's more in that natural, perhaps a bunker. There isn't, however, and I think uThermal actually kind of got away with murder here. If Astrea just blinks into the natural initially, I think he says, oh my god, this is still a great blink. That was a very ballsy call as well. I love that.
Well, he's going to start using that Warp Prism to get some additional blinks off on these Stalkers, as the Marauders and the Marines are still posing a bit of a threat, but he is still finding so much damage. The Raven comes back in with a second auto turret during all the blink micro, when Astrea just does not have the extra APM to spare. Going after some of the depots, he is going to be able to start to get closer and closer to potentially supply blocking uThermal. But uThermal, he has another siege tank out. Can he actually keep this one protected?
I think he can, but this eBay looks to be in a bit of danger. Without +1 pushing out across the map, it will get kind of scary. It also puts less pressure here on Astrea to actually get a forge. He's like, okay, you don't have an eBay, I don't need a forge either, buddy. I'll see you, well, once I get Storm or something like that, and have a nice day. Because it's not going to be great for Terran without upgrades, let me tell you that much. Stalkers blink into the main as well. Here, Stim and Combat finished. Yeah, was a little bit risky, but Astrea gets out without any major damage. Observer does get sniped with a scan, and the Raven's still alive as well, but uThermal's in a lot of trouble right now.
Another auto turret going to be able to deny some mining over the third base. uThermal's going to take whatever he can find or whatever he can get. And well, you called it, Kev. We do have Templar Archives on the way. Additional gateways being added on. Charge going to be coming on out. And we see it there. Just the cost efficiency of these Blink Stalkers so far. uThermal's response is going to be going for this triple medevac drop. The Stalkers are already pulling back over to that third base, which is exactly the angle that uThermal's looking to hit from.
Yeah, this is a very uThermal move as well. He either goes into the main base all the way along the edge, or he drops near your third base and tries to snipe either a base or a bunch of workers. However, there's so much here. This scan reveals the army, but it also kind of reveals the intention and perhaps alerts Astrea to the fact that there is something on the map waiting for him.
Yeah, I like that the auto turret does come out before the army moves in, so it gets a little bit of that scouting information on Astrea's army positioning. Another Warp Prism is about to pop out over here for Astrea, and with Storm also on the way, getting Chrono boosted out, I'm curious if he has too many High Templars already warped in, or if he's just starting that right now. He is starting to build up a little bit of energy, and scan comes out on those High Templars as well, so uThermal knows what he's going to be moving into very shortly, and he's actually going to pull the boys over here as well.
Yeah, I mean, it worked last time. Why not try it again? This time, however, with Storm about to finish, this could be kind of dangerous. This army still looks scary, though. I actually believe Astrea needs to give up this base, at least temporarily. We'll just take the alternate base here. I don't mind if he takes it immediately. Storm finishing up in 10 seconds. And, I mean, if Storm finishes and it hits one Storm on these Marines, that will completely change this fight.
uThermal pulls back right as Storm finishes. Some kind of 6-star sense. The engineering bay blocks identifying how many charge lots there are as well. Charge lots come in from the natural. Stalkers blink on forward. The Storms are available, and they cover all of these Marines. The GG gets called, and a fist pump comes out from Astrea as he leads the series once again 2-1.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic play out of Astrea this game. Once more, honestly, not the greatest start build order-wise, but he does manage to pull that one out. I think that little fight in the middle with the 3 Reapers and the Cyclones, it just really inhibited the ability of uThermal to get the scouting information and potentially do some type of damage with those Reapers. I mean, he invested a lot into that. It was 3 Reapers, it was a Cyclone. If you're playing against Blink, well, at least the Reapers need to do something. The Cyclone honestly never will do something. The unit is kind of slow and bad, but yeah, these Reapers, that's pain. Also, just not getting that complete scout. I mean, there were no bunkers, not in the main base, not in the natural. uThermal's right now talking to Kalazur, and yeah, we'll have to see what they have to say about that.
Yeah, I feel like some of these games have been kind of tough because it's not exactly like uThermal's doing these builds that you just do multiple games or a ton of different games in the series. These are a lot more of these, I'm going to do this, and if I do it again, it's me being extra tricky because you wouldn't expect it twice. And I feel like it can sometimes be a little bit tough to take a big lesson away from some of those situations, right?
Yeah, I think this is the type of loss as well for uThermal where the takeaways probably aren't going to be too useful because it's super build order theory focused. So yeah, it's not going to be great, and yeah, it just kind of sucks. We'll have to probably think of something new. I know that uThermal isn't a huge fan of repeating build orders either in a best of 5 unless he only plays that build order. That tends to kind of be his style. Yeah, I'm just so curious what he's going to be playing. Astrea most likely will continue with what he's doing, like kind of these solid openers. Even though it was a proxy gate in this case, it does give him a bit of momentum and it allows him to transition into the blink, which he apparently just lost. Personally, I really wouldn't mind seeing a Stargate opener at some point.
Yeah, well, guys, we are going to give these two players a little bit of extra time as we're going to head to a short break. They've had a very, very long day, so we're going to give them a few minutes before they recuperate themselves for game number 4. We'll see you guys at the conclusion of this series and another series after this, right after the break.
some people say that to this day Showtime is still eating the cake, Ravi. Because that was a giant piece of cake right there. It's both the birthdays of Creator and Showtime today, and both of them got a huge cake. Creator got it first, and what I heard already, distributed it amongst the players. So Showtime had this giant cake all for himself. There was no one anymore that wanted any more cake. And yeah, I think he's halfway through right now, is the latest updates from what I've heard. Let's get back into this series right now. It's a best of 5, Astrea up 2-1, one map away from qualifying for that round of 24, getting into that group stage.
It'd be such a big moment for either one of these players, because uThermal, you know, coming in as one again with the replacement player, being able to make a deep run in this would be awesome. And Astrea, he's been very, very clear. His goal is to make it to the round of 12 this event. He made a really, really good run of things in the group stages last year, and he wants to be able to repeat that kind of performance. And now he's sitting up 2-1 against uThermal. And in all the games so far, it does feel like there's been at least one moment, if not multiple, where Astrea has been ahead in every game, or at least felt like he was in a very confident place in each game.
Yeah, no, I definitely do agree with that. Technically, this series felt a little bit like a 3-0 already, and uThermal still miraculously, staying alive somehow, some way. He will need to switch it up if he wants to compete here with the American.
Here we go. We're heading into map number 4. uThermal got to be able to turn things around. He's been throwing out build orders left and right, the jab, the hook, everything he can think of. And like you were saying before, Harstem, we don't really see uThermal repeating build orders too often in a best of. We'll have to see what he's planning to throw out over here versus Astrea, because maybe some of the stuff he has been trying has not fully worked out, and maybe he'll stumble onto something that works out a little bit better for him this time. All right, it's heading into Blackburn. Down here on the bottom left-hand side of the map, we have our red Terran player from Team Liquid. He is uThermal.
And in the bottom right, as the blue Protoss player playing for Alpha X, it is Astrea.
Oh man, I cannot imagine what it's like as these players. We've already been talking about what a long and exhausting day this is, but even as this series starts going a little bit further and closer to the distance, if this goes to a game 5, I mean, I'm just starting to feel a little bit bad for the players who have just been at it, grinding all day long. It's definitely not easy to try and bear with it for this long, but here we are, moving into game number 4 on Blackburn, which can sometimes be a little bit of a funky map, I would say.
Yeah, it is a very tricky map, and once again, if there's one map where you're going to be playing Stargate on, I think that Blackburn is a fantastic map for that. Opening up with an Oracle here is really popular. As a result, we see a lot of 3-Rex and triple CC openers as well out of Terran, so yeah, I'm just curious to see what... No, this does not look like a Stargate opener. Freaking 16 workers on minerals, 2 in the gas. You know, earlier today I almost believed that Astrea wanted to throw down a quick Nexus and maybe go into a Stargate. But I think he got eBay blocked, so it didn't quite end up working out. But I have not been able to see any real Stargate play out of him this tournament whatsoever. It's going to be a Marine Reactor here, by the way. So no early shenanigans. Could still go into something like a 3-Rex perhaps, but... Seems kind of unlikely. You
know, one thing I always found kind of curious and interesting about Astrea is he is not one of those players that kind of says, here's the meta, and I should follow along with it, and I just need to understand what people are doing and kind of take advantage of a lot of the discovery and stuff that other people have done. I think Astrea really does enjoy the process of discovery. When he finds inspiration or finds something or his own little alteration on things, he fully embraces it. I think that's part of the reason why we sometimes see him not necessarily do the most meta things on maps. And sometimes it's a little bit of a mind game, but sometimes it's just Astrea saying, look, this is the way I've discovered to play StarCraft that works for me. And that can be an advantage in and of itself sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. Did get that Twilight Council pretty quick there, by the way, before the second gateway unit. It's important if you want to get the blink out before the medevac enters. You can position yourself, blink under a medevac, and if uThermal is not aware of this, could potentially be in some giant trouble. So this adept is going to shade, making sure that there's indeed 5 Marines. He checks, it's like, okay, 5 Marines. The next adept most likely will go into the natural, trying to count those SCVs, making sure that there is not too many SCVs there. Indicating some type of single gas build order.
Yeah, and of course we see behind the curtain that uThermal does have both of his gas geysers. He's playing a relatively normal kind of standard style, getting up a siege tank behind all of this. Now, You mentioned that faster Twilight Council had come down. He's already immediately starting up that Blink. Curious if he's throwing down a lot of Chrono Boost and stuff on it to try and get something up a little bit extra fast compared to usual.
This is not super standard though. Tank first. I guess you get a second tank before the medevac as well, and then you put both tanks into the medevac. Fly across the map. This is a really old build order, honestly. I think it first kind of became popular about a year and a half ago. I haven't seen it in popular play for a very long time. And seeing uThermal pull it out here on Blackburn is surprising. I'm curious to see if Astrea will be able to figure it out. What is the energy level currently at the Sentry? Okay, we have 70, 69. Energy. We'll get that hallucination in, but I think the tanks will already be in the medevac. That means that the Stalkers can't be on the map. If the Stalkers aren't on the map against this, and these tanks siege up, this build is sick.
Hallucinate Phoenix is going to be potentially crossing path with the medevac. Oh my god, it just barely missed it. And there's also all of the Marines and all of these SCVs making their way across the map. Astrea has no idea. He has not moved out with the Stalkers just yet, but it looks like he's about to encounter them. Blink has finished, so he should be able to keep these Stalkers alive and healthy. But, I mean, to what end? What is he going to be retreating back to right now?
Yeah, he's going towards his third base. uThermal's just going to straight up walk into this natural, another warp in there. Oh, that's an aggressive blink. He's going to lose 2 Stalkers immediately, 1 more shot. Yeah, 3 Stalkers go down there for a tank. That usually is an okay-ish trade, but if you only have 2 gateways building, I think uThermal just wins here.
I don't think there's a whole lot you can do when your Robo gets depowered. Your Gateway Flood is not quite there yet. You don't even have charge. What do you do as Astrea? He's not even going to be able to intercept reinforcements or anything. There's no reinforcements coming. He blinks forward with 2 of the Stalkers are behind, goes to the shield battery overcharge. This is a beautiful maneuver, but he still has to be able to deal with these Marines, and he's already lost his Robo.
Yeah, the gateway will also most likely fall. I do believe that uThermal was a little bit too careful with the Marines in that natural. Could have perhaps chased a couple of workers. This is, of course, good, but it also does need to deal a lot of damage. He's currently only on 34 workers. He's going to go for the pickup on this medevac. Gets out. Barracks 2 and 3 are on the way as well, but at the end of the day, what did Astrea really lose except for some infrastructure, which he can easily rebuild? I mean, he didn't lose too much eco. No workers went down. Sure, lost a couple of units, but so did uThermal. I think this might have been okay.
Yeah, tech-wise, you can start to recover, especially when you effectively knocked out a lot of the power units there for uThermal. uThermal does have a handful more tanks that came out, so he is going to be starting to move out. He's got a Raven added on in behind all of this. So I want to say there was a transition setup, but this is just a transition to yet another follow-up attack. But this time, you look at the timing of this attack is moving across the map right now. It's in the center. 5 gateways on the way for Astrea. Charge finished up during that last little skirmish, so he's going to have the advantage of being able to really dive in on top of this army very quickly.
Yeah, there's no stim here, no combat. Super battery gets activated immediately. Auto turret goes down as well. These charcoals are fighting outside of battery range though, and honestly not a bad fight here at the start for uThermal. Once that battery runs out, these 3 tanks will still be alive. I'm not quite sure if there's enough tanking power as the Marine count has dwindled a fair amount already.
Yeah, ironically, the tanks need a tank themselves, and these Stalkers blink on forward with the Marines mostly gone. The charge lots diving in on top, the Marines going away, and Astrea gets a full cleanup, and again, he just has the superior economy, a large margin behind this. uThermal, what is he really going to be able to fall back to?
Yeah, not too much, honestly. I think uThermal was hoping that Charge wasn't done yet. If Charge isn't done yet in that fight, it's a very different fight, obviously. But Charge was done, and I think uThermal looked a little bit upset about that as well. Was talking a bit to himself there. Doesn't want to drop out yet. Throws down the 4th and the 5th barracks. So once again, going for that 5-rex play. This time, the +1 is going to be delayed. It won't be there for the first push, Fear Dragon. And, oh my god, this is actually so sick. 4th base on the way, Robo Bay, double fort. I really believe that Astrea just needs to see the lack of a 3rd command center, and he would immediately understand, okay, we need to actually start preparing for this. Like, double fort and Robo Bay, that is not what we want right now.
Look at the vision right now of Astrea. The moment anything even tries to start moving around the map, he's going to actually spot it out immediately. Sees that army has got that Raven still around, so he can actually start to pick off some of those observers. And I like that uThermal's trying to clean up some of the vision here for Astrea, but Here we go yet again. The boys are back in town, and they are looking for a good old time on Astrea's side of the map. Now, Astrea gonna try and go for some pickoffs with these Blink Stalkers. Has to be really careful. Stim makes it hard to run away effectively, especially after Concussive Shells finishes, but it's just barely not finished in time.
A couple of mines are here. Oh, big anti-armor missile, actually only hitting 5 units there in the end. Super battery immediately gets activated. SCVs will try to tank. We'll need to see some hold position micro as well here.
And the Zealots getting some good friendly fire damage. Actually softens up a lot of the medevacs as well. And now we start to see the SCV count is starting to dwindle. The Zealot count is also almost gone, but Astrea should have another round of reinforcements coming in a matter of seconds.
Oh, the Colossi popping out actually is huge here. All of these Marines completely useless in the face of one Colossi with these big lasers. There's still a lot of Marauders as well. Mines will be ready to shoot once again. There's 5 mines remaining in this army, 4 at this point. Another one goes down. This third base will fall, but a lot of the SCVs also go down. 1-1 is about to finish up for Astrea, and Astrea still has a 4th base that is mining on the gold.
Snags off a handful of those Widow Mines. Is going to be trading a couple of these Stalkers for it, but as we end up seeing 1-1 finished up, like you said before, Astrea, if he can actually find a way to, I was going to say defend the gold base, but he's going to end up losing most of the workers over here as well. Is this actually going to be enough damage? Can uThermal actually back off after this, or does he need more?
He'll need to back up, but with this base still alive, I mean, it's a gold. He's up, what, Astrea's up 14 workers? With a gold? Yeah, that's not good for Astrea, honestly. This is, sorry, it's not good for uThermal. This is absolutely fantastic for Astrea. He has better tech, he has better upgrades, he has better eco. And the only thing that uThermal has going for himself is, well, nothing.
Well, uThermal at least is finding Astrea pretty far out of position right now, so there might be another opportunity. Only half the army is over here. The rest of the army is still retreating on back, but I think uThermal not going to necessarily have all the available units to take on the full force of the Protoss army. Goes for a nice little concave split. The Force Seals lock out a lot of these units, and uThermal taps out Astrea, fist pumping his way